This is a quick lesson example on how or what a sourcing assessment will look like in class. We do these assessments that I call HATS for short, but it stands for Historical Assessments of Thinking. And these work on the skills that we use when we look at primary documents in our investigations we do in class. These skills right here: sourcing, contextualization, close reading, and corroboration. And each student should have this graphic organizer as a reference tool. And so this one is specifically addressing the skill of sourcing. It's probably the most important thing we do, so we'll have several of these quizzes throughout the year. So let's look at it. It says up here at the top, the directions are to use the painting to answer the question below. So we have our painting here, and we have our question. The question says, the painting, The First Thanksgiving, 1621, helps historians understand the relationship between the Wampanoag Indians and the Pilgrim settlers in 1621. Do you agree or disagree? So, what it's asking students to do first off is to circle one of those, saying they agree or disagree that the painting up above here, The First Thanksgiving, 1621, helps historians understand the relationship between the Native Americans and the Pilgrims. And I'm going to tell you what the answer is for this one. So in this painting, at the textual level, just at the surface level, what we see, it looks as if, and we can clearly tell a difference between what the painting is depicting the Native Americans to look like and the Europeans. And it looks as if they have a very peaceful relationship. It shows them together. The Europeans are giving them food. Looks pretty good. So a student who lacks the skill of sourcing will simply look at the painting and agree that, yeah, this is showing us the relationship. Yes, I agree. And that's what they will say. Well, that's not an accurate statement, because what we really have to do is look at the source information. We need to ask questions such as, when was the document written? Who wrote it? Who created it? Why was it written or created? Where or for whom was the document created? What's the author's point of view? All these things, is it public or private? Now, you don't have to ask all of those questions of every source, but some of them will be used for this one. So in this case, we have some information down here about this painting. The title, The First Thanksgiving, 1621. It was created by the artist J.L.G. Ferris, and it was created in 1932. Now that is something that raises attention to me. The event of the First Thanksgiving, which did actually occur, occurred in the year 1621. And so this wasn't painted until about a little over 300 years after that event. So what that's telling me is that there's no way that this guy, Ferris, or girl, this artist was definitely not alive at this event. So they would not have seen this. Now that would give a student a complete grade. If they said they disagree because the date here is showing that this is a big, it's a secondary document, which is fine, but the problem is that this historian wasn't alive then, this artist wasn't alive then, and we have no clue what they're basing their information on. So they would write that down there. It's over 300 years from the actual event. There's no way this person was alive to witness this. Now, to go a little further, a student more advanced might say, you know, it doesn't tell us exactly what this painting is based on. They weren't alive then, but we have no clue what they're even basing this painting on. An even more advanced student might say, or might bring in their actual knowledge of the First Thanksgiving. And they might write down that while the Thanksgiving did occur this year, this painting is actually not telling the truth at all. In fact, it would be the other way around, the Native Americans providing the food to the Pilgrims. When the Pilgrims got there, they arrived too late. They could not plant crops. Half of them died when they got there. And if it wasn't for the Native Americans' help, they would have probably all died. And so, this clearly shows a bias towards the European side of this interaction because, well, we can make a pretty strong guess that this artist is of uh, European descent, not Native American. And so they're showing this inaccurate one-sided relationship between the two. So at the most, what they would need to say is disagree, and at least addressing this time gap issue between 1621 and 1932. This artist would not have been alive then. We have no clue what they based their evidence on. And this is historically inaccurate as well.